My first guest this morning is the Minister for Health and MP for Lewis, Maria Caulfield. Maria, good morning. Welcome to Ashdown Radio.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good to see you. Busy time at the moment?
It is. Christmas is always a busy time for a local MP. You're a bit like the Vicar of Dibley. Like, you go everywhere and eat too many mince pies, and everyone's done some home baking, and yeah, you pile on the pounds definitely over the Christmas period.
I'm laughing now because every time I see in the future, I'm going to think of Dawn French. What I'd like to do this morning is talk about some national and local issues, if I could. And can I just start with a couple of national issues? Rwanda, obviously big in the news, and we've seen that obviously publicly you're supportive of this bill, aren't you?
I am. I think a lot of people who are against it haven't actually been to Rwanda, and I've worked for 2 summers in Rwanda doing vaccinations and also teaching English as well. And Rwanda is an amazing country for people who haven't been there. It's had a terrible history, and the people have really come together to try to transform the country. And actually, it's quite progressive. I think something like 70% of their MPs are female. They've got a real push on diversity and bringing all communities together. And their justice system, the way they deal with justice, is pretty progressive in that sense. The way they did the courts post the genocide and everything. So it really upsets me that they get such a bad rap from people who've never been there.
But what about that they don't have a good record on human rights, do they?
Well, obviously they had the genocide, and that was fairly recent in terms of genocides that have happened. But they have turned things around, and I think there are some concerns. There's concerns in many countries around human rights, but actually the government there are very proactive in addressing some of those issues. And what we found with the courts was the courts didn't determine that Rwanda wasn't a safe place. They determined that the big concern about the Rwanda scheme was that if we sent people to Rwanda, would they then send them back to their place of origin, which may not be safe, and that we needed to have some safeguards that if Rwanda didn't keep people, they came back to the UK, or they came back to or went to another country that was safe, rather than Syria, Afghanistan, or wherever they
because
came from.
In fairness, that has happened previously, hasn't it? They did send people back. That has happened,
and that was the big concern of the Supreme Court.
So talking about concerns, in Rwanda they don't recognise same-sex marriages, so it's not illegal. But is there a concern that the LGBTQ plus community are not openly recognised, and there are concerns from people of that community being sent to Rwanda?
Well, part of the treaty is putting those safeguards in place. So that's why we've developed a treaty now. It's not just an agreement with Rwanda. So those concerns that the courts had about who would be sent to Rwanda, what would happen to them after they've been to Rwanda, would be addressed in that treaty. There are many countries that that don't accept LGBT rights. We're very progressive in this country, and rightly so. And so as part of the treaty, we want to make sure that those safeguards are in place for anyone who was to be sent to Rwanda.
So one of the questions people must be thinking is, why Rwanda? I mean, the numbers are the numbers. £290 million, I think, by next year would have been spent. Why not do a deal with the French? And at £290 million, deal with the French. Surely we could do something a lot simpler, a lot quicker. So, for example, people coming over on boats, we check them over, and we just simply put them back into France in a plan that the £290 million supports, that would immediately break this people smuggling business model. Why not do something like that?
So it's not an either or. So we do have a plan with France. We do give France a significant amount of money. It has reduced the boats this year by 35,000 have been stopped crossing from the French coast. We've also got arrangements with countries like Albania. So our deal with Albania we've seen a 90% reduction of those who are coming from Albania in small boats in the last 12 months. So the Rwanda deal is only a small element of how we're dealing with this situation.
Still £290 million worth.
Well, that sounds a lot of money, but when you think we're spending £8 million a day on hotels, despite the Bibi Stockholm, despite Manston opening, we're still spending £8 million a day. That doesn't go very far over a 12-month period. So really you're looking at a 12-month period of this to spend that money on Rwanda. And Rwanda isn't going to take huge numbers of people. The Minister said it will be between hundreds and thousands of people, but it will act as a deterrent. We know that if people think they're going to come to the UK and be sent to Rwanda, that's a real disincentive to spending £10,000-12,000 of money you don't have, giving that to basically a people smuggler. You will think twice about coming to the UK if you're not going to be staying here and will be sent to Rwanda, and your claim will be processed there.
So the other big national issue I just wanted to touch base with you on was obviously Gaza. Given what's going on out there, I mean, is it not time that the government called for a ceasefire on humanitarian grounds?
Well, there was a ceasefire up until October the 7th, which Hamas broke. There has been a ceasefire since then, which again Hamas broke. They had that attack in Jerusalem, killing elderly people at a bus stop. They didn't release all the hostages that they committed to releasing, and they started firing rockets back into Israel. So there was a ceasefire that could have been ongoing. It was being kind of renewed on almost a day-by-day basis, and Hamas broke that.
But the British government isn't openly calling for isn't supporting a national coalition to say, look, this has got to stop. The British government are quite quiet on it.
So we are calling for pauses to allow for humanitarian aid, but we have to be realistic here. Hamas does not want a ceasefire. They want to regroup. They've said that the 7th of October was a warm-up act, and they would be going back into Israel. And so we need to be really clear that a ceasefire is on both sides, and there is intensive negotiations, particularly with the Arab states who are talking to Hamas leaders, to people in Palestine who have influence, to try and get that side on board. But unless they do that, Israel is not going to agree to a ceasefire. So we need to be realistic. Israel has been hugely hurt and devastated by what happened on October the 7th. They're not going to take a chance that there's going to be a second incident like that. And so to agree to a ceasefire, we do need the other side to agree to that. And then when the ceasefire is in place, to actually stick to it. And what we've seen is, unfortunately, there was good progress being made with hostages exchange and prisoner exchanges from Israel. And, Hamas broke that in 3 ways, which led to the collapse of that ceasefire just a couple of weeks ago.
OK, let's move on to local issues, if we could. Postal services locally. I know this is something that you've been very, very involved with. So can you tell us what's happening and what updates that you got? Because obviously this time of year, there's people are really relying on postal services. What's happening? So this has been an issue really for over the last few months, really. And I've been to visit the sorting office in Lewis and in touch with my posties in New Haven as well. And it's across the board. I've been quite surprised once I've spoken out on this, how widespread this issue is. And people are just not getting their post for weeks on end. Some people are getting maybe a delivery once a fortnight, some even more than that. These are letters, Christmas cards at the moment, hospital appointments. Hospital appointments, medicines, things. It's really important stuff. And what I'm finding with the posties is what they tell me is that there's huge amounts of sickness. They're not replacing staff when they leave, and the existing posties then have to take on the additional rounds. And you can only do so much delivering. I deliver lots of leaflets, so I know how difficult a job it is. They're also diverting the postal vans away from letters to parcels. They really want to focus on becoming a parcel delivery service rather than a mail delivery service. But they have got a universal service obligation, the Royal Mail. They are contracted to deliver that mail on a daily basis to every house in the country, and they are failing on that at the moment. I reported them, as did many other people, to Ofcom, who have fined them heavily, over £5 million fine for not meeting their commitment. And when I wrote to the Minister recently saying I cannot get in touch with the Royal Mail managers to discuss this, to support our posties who want to get our mail delivered, he wrote back and has asked for the team to meet with me and other MPs now who are equally concerned, because it's a very valuable service. Is it a local problem here, Maria, or are you seeing it elsewhere in the country? It seems to be, once we've kind of opened a can of worms, it seems to be a much more widespread problem, which is not much help if you're still waiting for your hospital appointment, but it isn't just a local problem. This is a national management problem of how they're managing the Royal Mail service at the moment. And is it something you think we're going to get a resolution to in the near future? It doesn't feel like it from what you're saying. Yeah, so no, the Minister is very concerned, and he's meeting with the CEO of Royal Mail to say they have got a universal service obligation, that has to be one of their priorities. They can divert into parcels as well and build up that service, but they do have an obligation. And, some people, particularly elderly people who live on their own, the postman is often the only person they see every day, and will often pick up if they haven't,
collected their milk bottles, if the mail's still in the door, will often be that point of contact to get help. Our posties do an amazing job in all weathers. I deliver leaflets. I'm a fair weather deliverer. If it's raining or snowing, I'm not out and about, but they are there every day, and they want to do a good job. And currently they haven't got the staff, and they haven't got the vans, particularly in areas like this where it's hilly or rural. They need those vans to be able to deliver the post. So we need to support them, and they're voting with their feet, unfortunately, that the job is getting very difficult, and they often are leaving, and we want to retain those who are, who do a really good job.
Could I move on then to local transport consultation, because there's one going on at the moment, and perhaps give an opportunity just to sort of talk up what we're looking for people to do here.
Yeah, so East Sussex County Council are running their local transport plan consultation. I think it's open till about February, and it's really our opportunity to feed into the County Council what we would like to see with our transport. We've got some really good new models of public transport in our villages. The Flexi Bus is now live, and people can dial up, they can use the app, they can book the Flexi Bus. It's not on a fixed route, it's not on a fixed timetable, and we've had some really good feedback on that, and that's the more of that we want to see. But if people are concerned about speed limits in their village, if people want to see a particular road improved, whether it's with crossings outside schools, this is the opportunity to feed in and say, this is what we like. So I'm trying to engage with parish councils to say, do feed into the transport plan, and if there's a good groundswell of support in a local area, let's try and push to get it into the plan.
So people would like to input to the consultation through the Sussex County Council website?
Go onto the website, there's the link there, you can feed in, but also feed into your parish or town council, because they will be putting in submissions as well. And I think the more responses we get, the better. I'm working with a group over in Ditchling who want to see safer cycling between Ditchling and Kemah, and even just cutting back the hedgerows so that people can kind of safely navigate those roads makes a big difference. So, this is an opportunity when people are moaning about the roads, even if it's to fix potholes, let's get it into the plan and, start to make progress. And then my job is to lobby for funding to pay for it.
Okay.
That's the hard bit.
So while you're sitting here then, in your local role and also your national as a Minister of Health, NHS dentists, how does somebody locally get NHS dentist treatment?
Well, the problem we have is we haven't got a shortage of dentists. We've got a shortage of dentists who take on NHS work. Yes. They're not direct. We don't have dentists directly employed by the NHS. They choose to take on a contract. Yep. Now, at the moment, with so much other cosmetic dentistry available, they can make a living without having to take on the contract. So what we're doing is we are working on a deal with the dentists to make that much more attractive. There is a website, the NHS website, Find My Dentist, so that you can go on and put in your postcode, and it will tell you the local dentists that are taking on contracts. We have got 5 dental practices in this area that will take on emergency work. So if you're looking for, if you're you've got an abscess or your fillings fallen out or whatever it is, you can go on there, and there's 5 practices that will see people from, doesn't have to be the nearest dentist that will see people, but we are working with the local dentists to try and get more of them to take up the NHS dental contract. And the government, I'm not the dental minister, but the government will be making an announcement soon about an initiative to make dentists more accessible and to make working for the NHS more attractive. Because
the dentist will say, in fairness, is the contract is unaffordable. They cannot afford to take the NHS contract because they just cannot make it pay. Is the counter argument. Yeah. I think I may be wrong on this, but they say whether you have 1 filling or 5 fillings in your treatment, I still get paid for the 1 filling.
Yeah.
Broadly speaking, that
is correct.
Is that correct? And they say they just cannot operate on that basis. Yeah. It's the contract that's the problem.
Well, the contract is an issue, and we did reform the contract slightly last year, but there is more work to be done on that, and that's the negotiation with the BDA that's happening at the moment. But also we've got £3 billion we spent on dentistry that's given to our local health commissioners. That's not all spent on dentistry, and one of the things the government is looking at is, do we ring fence that budget? So yes, there is a contract, but could your local commissioner, so NHS Sussex, could they top that up with their allocation of the £3 billion to make that contract work, to make it more affordable for dentists? That budget has never been ring fenced, and what happens is we give it to local commissioners. They go, oh, we have no dentists, so they spend it on something else. And it's getting to such a scale now that we're looking at ring fencing that budget.
So just to recap then, if somebody is in pain, you said there are 5 dentists locally that will take in.
Yeah, if they go onto that website.
What's the website, Maria?
So if you go onto Find a Dentist on the NHS website, it will drop down and put your postcode, and you can find those 5 local dentists who should be able to offer bookings. We're trying to expand that list as well. But also, if you're in pain, we have got the urgent care centre in Uckfield. If it's an infection or pain, they can give you some interim fixes till you can get an appointment.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So just finally then, your Christmas card competition this year, something you run every year. Your winners this year?
Yes, so I had Elwyn from Chinkton Primary School in Seaford, who did a lovely picture of the snowman. It was a Christmas movie theme. We got some really good entrants. I do think we got some parents entering as well. Or else we've got some very, very talented children. But we had a huge response, and it's going out to, you've got a card here at Ashdown Radio.
Yeah.
It's going to the Prime Minister, other MPs, all local organisations. And so, yeah, so really big thanks to all the children who took part.
And you had a couple of runners-up, didn't you? You had Zach from Cradle High Schools and William from Newark.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so we try to get a good spread around the constituency. So congratulations to all them. So the winners on the front cover and the 2 runners-up are on the back.
Maria Caulfield, our MP for Lewis and Minister for Health, thank you for joining us this morning.
No, thank you. Merry Christmas.